Good morning, Core 3. I hope you had a great break and welcome to our course. If you haven't had a chance to review the syllabus, let's go over some of it together, okay? But it's been posted onto the homepage of Canvas, and then also we'll upload it as a PDF document if you would like. But let's just quickly go over it together before we begin this week's lecture, which is on two pioneering photographers of the 20th century, Alfred Steiglitz and Ansel Adams. Okay, so the most important part of this course is that it's WebEx and asynchronous, meaning that there's no set meeting time. So what does that mean? That means you have to designate the time towards the course. It's your responsibility to set that time in your schedule. So this is either a blessing or a curse. And it can be either for you, depending on whether or not you can find that time in your day for this course, in your week for this course. So please do set a schedule for yourself. So you know I'll be posting my schedule as I'm going to post our weekly module content by Tuesday morning of every week. And you're required to have the week's content done by Sunday, end of day Sunday each week. Okay, there might be projects that'll be specified differently, but I believe most of our assignments and all of the content for each week should be finished by that Sunday. And if you keep on track, then we'll have a really good experience. This course, which is a foundational level required art course, introduces the two main technologies which have transformed art and culture over the 20th century and now into the 21st century, and that's the camera and the computer. So this is part seminar where I'm teaching you the history of these things. It's part studio course where I'll be teaching you software and tutorials and to be able to apply to projects for your own art practice. And we'll be covering a variety of things. I myself am a deep generalist, which means I'm not an art historian. I'm an artist myself. But I want to introduce you to artists, topics, theories, and techniques that are, within this theme of digital image making or, technology and art together. So I'm introducing you to the photograph, to cinema, to video, and then to internet-based art. And what we'll be doing is taking photographs, editing video, and writing code for our projects. So our learning objectives are foundational knowledge of photographers and conceptual artists, movements, and terminology related to digital media. And we will access these things through lectures, screenings, readings, projects and discussions, and written assignments. So I want to introduce you to this cultural theory that's related to art and technology, to some of the to the way that intellectuals have understood and written about art and technology is really important to getting a clear understanding of the discipline. We'll also teach you skill sets, some basic skill sets, entry-level skill sets using Photoshop, Premiere, and Dreamweaver, which is just it's a code editor. So you could use any code editor. You can use any video editing software, and you can use any photo editing software. But our tutorials will be in these using the Adobe Creative Cloud. So I think Core 4 has maybe given you, more in-depth instructions on how to get the Creative Cloud, but if not, I think it's $20 a month. It's a subscription to the entire Creative Cloud. But if you need to know how to gain access to it, then let me know, email me. Oh, let's go back, right? This is my email address. And I'm always available for a Zoom office hour appointment. If you email me, we'll set up a time to meet. This applies. Okay, let's keep going over our learning objectives. So some basic programming proficiency, which I think is really important for people working in art and technology and those that are interested in going into the field, learning how to program, learning how to, learning the kind of the material of the computer and of the internet is a very powerful thing. And so we'll dive into a little bit of that. It might sound scary, but it shouldn't be. And then I want you to learn how to communicate ideas visually. That's super important as artists or designers. So your supplies are an up-to-date computer with enough storage space, or you need to get an external hard drive. Make sure your computer is well organized. It's important to make sure you have enough space and to know where things are and to back up your computer. You need a camera. It can be any camera. Your camera phone is perfectly fine. Just as we get into some of those projects or the photography project, it will be important on how you orient it and how you use the different, you know, if you use filters or not, like just to be really aware of the device, the tool that you're using and its possibilities for as a means of expression. Okay, so I don't care what camera you use, you pick. Again, access to that Creative Cloud, and then get a Vimeo or a YouTube account, because I can't download you know, half a gig of video from you. I need it to be a URL link when we do our moving image project, and so that's what that YouTube or Vimeo account is going to be used for. And it's only going to be used one time in this course, but that's the way we need to. That's just the most space effective way for me to review what your work is, and for others as well. Our grading is as follows. We'll have 4 projects, increasing in a kind of in how much each project contributes to your final grade. So our first project is 10%, second is 15, third is 15, and the fourth is 20. This is the coding project. It does make up 20% of your grade. This is the moving image project, the Photoshop project, and the photography project. We'll have written responses, which are 30% of your grade. So we'll have a written response every week for 15 weeks. That'll be 2 points. These written responses can be kind of quick stream of consciousness, but try to get to some, use it as a way to bring clarity to some thoughts and ideas you have about whatever the prompt is. And the prompt will either be related to the readings, or it'll be related to the lectures that I provide you. And then we have critique participation, which is 10%. And this means we'll have a discussion forum posted within the module that contains everybody's assignment, or excuse me, everybody's project submissions, and then go through and review the work of your peers and leave like a positive or critical feedback for them. Because this is one of the most important parts of being an art student, is getting critical feedback. It's really one of the best ways to learn whether or not what you have produced is effective or not, or how it's affecting your viewers, is to get feedback from them. So, you know, be thoughtful and give good feedback to your peers. It's important. And that's 10% of your grade. Here are our projects, okay? And I will go over how to, I will go over all the specifics of them within the coming weeks as we approach the deadlines. And here in the syllabus, please go through this at your leisure. We have reasonable accommodation, adjustments, Title IX, and then the OU academic integrity policy. And then here's our calendar. I'll just show you how to, how I've broken this down here. Right? Anything that's in italics is going to be the readings. All the readings will be posted on that week's module. So they'll be posted as PDFs that you can download and read. And then I have a lectures, which is next, which is just plain text, or Photoshop tutorials, pretty self-explanatory, right? But when you see a list of artists' names, those are who I'll be lecturing about. And then this is screenings. And then an in bold is when we will have, the projects will be due by the end of day of the week before. So the end of week 3, project 1 will be due. And then this will be, the critique form will be included in this week's module. Okay. And the calendar is subject to change, but I think it's pretty broken down pretty well. So this is what you can expect to be learning and what you can expect in the coming weeks. So again, if you have any questions about the syllabus, please feel free to email me or my office hours if you want to talk in person as much as we can through Zoom. So now let's get into the meat of this week's lecture, which is talking about Alfred Steiglitz and Ansel Adams. Alfred Steiglitz was a pioneer of photography as an art form. It was his main passion and drive in life to elevate photography as more than just a method of historical documentation or a method of documentation at all, or as, using it in kind of hobbyist forms. He wanted to break people out of a kind of rigid perspective that art had to be something that was produced by the hand. And he was a really staunch believer in that. And he dedicated his life to it, to what he truly believed. And he's left quite a legacy. Here he is using a camera from the time, right? A handheld camera, quite larger than your cell phone, right? And so this is a mechanical device, not a digital device. You have a kind of silver plate or a plate that has metals on it, and light is filtered through the lens, and you set the lens to a particular aperture, and you set the lens open for a particular amount of time, and light goes through the apparatus and appears on the silver coated plate. And then you develop it with chemicals to reveal the image. So this is super powerful. This technology obviously has changed the course of human history. And so Steiglitz was an artist and wanted to use it for artistic purposes and show others that it was possible to use technology for art. So he was born in Hoboken, New Jersey, and he moved to Germany for schooling, and he was in a program to become an engineer, but he became fascinated by photography and art and worked with a photochemist there, and then came back to New York with that as his passion and intention for his career. So when he moved back to New York in 1890, he was really determined to prove that photography was as expressive, or could be as expressive, as painting and sculpture and traditional disciplines. And so he tried to convince others of this in a number of ways. The most important one is being an artist photographer himself. He was also so he joined what he thought were like minds at the time at the Camera Club of New York, which was an association of amateur photographers and hobbyists. And he became the editor of their magazine, Camera Notes. And so he used his status as an editor, and he was also a writer. And so he published his ideas about photography as an art form. So he's making photographs and he's writing and publishing those ideas. So through both his writing and his art, he's pursuing this idea that he has this strong belief in elevating photography's status as not just something to document the world, but you could do it artfully. So when he was with Camera, he had to leave Camera Notes and leave the Camera Club because he was very strong in his belief, and others necessarily weren't followers of his beliefs. And so he said, all right, I'm out of here. And he formed his own group called the Photo Secession. So there's a bunch of secessions, meaning that it's a group of people that are part of these kind of more established association of more conservative artists, and then these group of avant-garde radical artists who have more progressive ideas leave, and they've created these secession groups. And so this is how art goes into modernism, is through these secessions. And so he had the Photo Secession, and this is the group's kind of term. So you can see his fervor. You can read into his fervor here with this statement that he published on kind of the conditions of the group, of being a part of the group. So he says its aim is to loosely hold together those Americans devoted to pictorial photography in their endeavor to compel its recognition, not as the handmaiden of art, meaning that this is not a tool to document art, but rather it is itself, quote, a distinctive medium of individual expression. The attitude of its members, this is what he's asking of members, is one of rebellion against the insincere attitude of the unbeliever, of the Philistine, and largely of exhibition authorities. The secessionist lays no claim to infallibility, nor does he pin his faith to any creed, but he demands the right to work out his own photographic salvation. So in these kind of biblical, with this kind of religious language here, what he's saying is he's trying to put his foot down against those that don't believe that photography could be an art form. And he's saying, you know, that this group is here to prove otherwise, against kind of closed-minded exhibition authorities, people that are in charge, people that make decision on what work gets exhibited or not, and people that decide what ideas get published or not in papers and in camera notes. So he had to leave camera notes, started this group, and then he also started another magazine. Oh no, he decided it was in Camera Notes, excuse me. Camera Notes was his publication after he left the photo club. So the photo club had its own publication, but Camera Notes became his publication that he founded to really just disseminate his ideas, and others' ideas that are bound to this belief in photography as an art form, which is really about accepting technology as something that's intrinsically human and an extension of our humanity, right? That's kind of what's at the heart of this, to be honest with you. Okay, so to join his group of avant-garde photo secessionists, you needed Steiglitz approval. That's pretty much it. And then he provided opportunities to participate in national and international photography exhibitions. So in this way, he's expanding his sphere of influence. He has a very strong belief, and then he expands his sphere of influence. And then culture changes because of that. But as an artist, he's an artist as well, you know. He and being an artist meant that he was very much dedicated to his craft of photography, but he took really great care in constructing his prints. And he used, you know, the finest materials. He's using platinum instead of silver on his plates. But it's not just that. It's not just his dedication to, you know, honing his craft. It's not just a craft. It's an art form. And so what does that mean? It means that he's making really mindful compositional choices, and he's carefully selecting, or as you will see, carefully selects subject matter that becomes symbolic. So here we have the terminal, the car horses, 1893. And so it is a historical document. That's something that's important about the nature of photography as a medium, is that it is as close as we can get to a direct representation of reality. You know, painting is a technology as well, and it was for a while used to record the world around paint. It was used to record the world, right? It was used as a method of historical documentation. We can look at it that way. And then when photography was invented, painting was liberated to become more expressive art form that we know it today. Because this is a more direct way to historically represent reality. Because you have, again, a camera that has a lens, light goes through the lens, and it records on a silver plate the image. And so here, so it's not, but you do it mindfully and you do it artfully. To do it mindfully is to do it artfully. And so here, what's so beautiful about this photograph is the kind of dust or steam coming off of these horses. Photography as a medium of light, he's exploring that, and he's exploiting that potential. So he sets up the composition. So you have a three-dimensional world around you that's in full color, and he's able to picture and set up his camera in a particular way that knows that it's going to capture the lights and the darks and be a balanced composition. So it's historically recording a particular moment, you know, where we still have horse-drawn carriages here, you know, like the world is a changing place. Horse-drawn carriages are, you know, we have horses with a horse-drawn carriage, but we have this track, right? And so pretty soon this carriage is not going to involve the animals anymore. It's going to involve more technology. So there's ways that you can read symbolism into this image as a way to document the moment, but document more than just what's directly in front of you, to have it embody a kind of, to have it have, you know, deeper meaning than that. It's important. But again, what's formally beautiful about this is that kind of the way that the light reflects off of this steam of these animals is really quite beautiful. This is reflections, again, formally exquisite. The pavement after a bit of rain at night, it's illuminated. And so it's a balance of light and dark. And so that is what elevates photography to the status of art, formally. And that's what this is about. This is about a formalism and a dedication to formalism. And that it's directly related to painting and, again, compositional concerns of, you know, this could be a drawing rather than a painting, right? This could be a graphite drawing. It doesn't need to be a graphite drawing anymore. You can take a photograph of it and it will still provide that same kind of affect. This is The Hand of Man, 1902, right? So we have the kind of ground plane cutting across the image. We have this sense of depth from the line, quality of line from the tracks coming from the back from the background to the foreground. We have this beautiful dark steam against a cloudy sky, and there's so much detail in and again, we're balancing that light and dark in a way that took a tremendous amount of dedication to craft to be able to create this type of image that has, you know, an artful composition to it. But The Hand of Man, to me, is really related to this painting by Turner, you know, because I'm not a historian in technology, right? But you have the steam train is also radically changing the world. It's changing our relationship to time. We now can put time, we now can schedule things, right? Before, what did you need to do? You needed to worry about the weather. If you're moving people or goods, you need to worry about the weather, and you need to worry about the tides, because you're going to steam. You're either doing horse-drawn carriages or you're on a steamboat. And those things, you know, you're tied to the ebbs and flows of nature. With the train, nope, the train just provides you on your time, on human time, to get goods and people, to move them, to transport them. Okay, so it's incredibly transformative, this technology. But it's in this painting, right? This is a moment now. Photography is already invented. Painting can be liberated to be even more expressive. And so it can express that speed. So this painting is really about speed and movement. And the train provides people with that opportunity to see the world in a new way, because you see it speeding by you when you're on a train. And so Turner's trying to capture that. He captures that through very expressive brushwork, right? And so then Steiglitz, with his photograph, is totally in conversation with this painting, right? Look at how it's constructed. So he's saying, look, photography can be as effective as painting, I think, right? That's what he's trying to do. This is his proudest photograph, the steerage. So he, and also it's been, you know, highly recognized as one of the greatest photographs ever taken. And And that's because it's so dynamic. It is a historical document, right? So, and it's perfectly constructed. There's so many details to look at here in this photograph. But where does our eye jump? My eye jumps right to that man's hat, the sunlight reflecting off of his hat as he looks down on the lower deck. And this is a steamboat, and this is bringing, who knows, immigrants potentially, you know, moving people, revolutionizing the world through the movement of people, changing the world. The world's a changing place. It's increasingly becoming more and more and more so, right? But here you have this man's hat jumps out at you. He's looking down on the lower deck. So this is really about class. This is about the class divide, and it's represented through its composition. So this is true art. The composition, the form and composition support the expression of an idea about the world that's greater than just what's in front of you. So what's in front of you is, and you can say, yep, there's some people on a boat, but you really look at it and you see, well, look at these figures, look at these people. And it's crystal clear. They're all in focus. You have this beautiful texture of this chain, and it's cutting across. There's a little bit of a ladder in the corner. So this is, you know, an artful photograph in all of those ways, compositionally, conceptually. And it becomes true, you know, and people are convinced, oh, photography can be effective and expressive. This one, you know, not necessarily conceptual, right? This isn't a conceptual photograph. This doesn't illustrate something about, this isn't critical about anything necessarily, but it's beautiful formally. And this really does illustrate the beauty of the craft of photography, because look at that light coming out of those windows at night. It's beautifully constructed. So he also opened up a gallery. This is the 291 gallery on Fifth Avenue. So he's an artist. He's now opening up spaces for others to exhibit their art. For photographers from the photo secession to exhibit their photographs, again, to convince people that photography isn't just a toy. But not only is he showing photographs, he also brought European modernist painters and sculptors to New York. So he gave the first exhibition to people like Rodin, Brancusi, and Picasso to the United States. I realize I misspoke, and it doesn't necessarily matter. Camera Notes, the Camera Club, and Camera Work was his esteemed publication. Anyway, in case you, just to be clear on that, okay? It's Camera Work was his publication. Okay, so he's exhibiting these other avant-garde painters and sculptures as well in the same space that he's exhibiting these photographs. This is Georgia O'Keeffe. This is Steiglitz's lifetime love and his muse. And if you, well, I'll introduce you to her. She's one of the most renowned modernist female painters of the 20th century. She lived in Santa Fe for a time, but when she met Steiglitz, she was 28, and she was not a known artist at all. And he helped her career tremendously. And she became his muse. And they wrote love letters back and forth. Sometimes she lived out in New Mexico and he was still in New York. And so what does this photograph express, right? Doesn't it express reverence and love and respect? You know, he's photographing her face up close. She's looking up. I mean, there's true beauty here. He's not just taking a photograph of her. He's trying to represent her essence and his love for her in a way that is artful. This is some of her paintings. And so Georgia O'Keeffe is known for her paintings of close-ups of flowers, of botanicals, of plants. So she's really looking at the way that the beauty of the form of plants and flowers And then she's finding inspiration in that to create dynamic, abstract compositions that are about color and shape. And Steiglitz believed that they were also embedded with kind of feminine expression of femininity. And O'Keeffe just said they're about flowers, but that's what Steiglitz, he saw these and thought, oh my gosh, feminine beauty, and so he, fell in love with her and exhibited her, and was incredibly influential in her career. Right, here's Abstraction Blue, 1927. This is the beginning of like modernist painting, which is not just to depict, it's not just to make a representation of the world, it's to really try to express the beauty and essence of form with these paintings. So we can just render something that's working within craft, or we can try to express something, and that becomes more artistic. And we can think about composition here. That's something that's really important for you to be really thinking actively about. The ideas and the expression of ideas will come later, but you really should just be considering form and composition. That's what I want you to work on. Here's a photograph of her, highly charged, sexualized photograph. Her head's cut off. It's just her body, objectifying her. But he's also taking photographs of her like this. He photographed her constantly. So what's this photograph about? It's about her hands. And she's in a pose that isn't sexualized, right? It's more loving. And he becomes increasingly obsessed with her hands and creates these really formal compositions that express and, give attention to George O'Keeffe's tools, which are her hands as a painter, which he loves. He loves her as a painter as well. And you can see that in these photographs. And this one, so we see here, her face is not even a part of this. It's just her hands. Where's the beauty of this, of representing this other person that you love? But this photograph also, you have you can see the texture of the silk. It's very tactile, and the precision of her hands as she's sewing, and the gesture. Like, look at the gesture of that one hand in that gesture, symbolic. And he pointed his camera up at the sky, which is probably the most pure relationship with photography as an art form, because it's a way of allowing light to, it's just a direct representation of light, or as much as we can get, right? The light comes through the camera lens and gets recorded on the silver plate. And so here it's even more abstracted. So maybe he's gaining inspiration from George O'Keeffe as well, in his compositions of clouds, just looking up at clouds. And so it becomes more abstracted. So we don't even have the historical value in the photograph anymore. We just have its pure formal qualities and its expression as a medium, like what the medium of photography is really all about, which is light. Okay, Ansel Adams, 1902 to 1984. Ansel Adams was a follower of Steiglitz, but he was out in the West, and he was a landscape photographer and also an environmentalist and conservationist. And he used his practice, he put his practice towards the cause of preservations and national parks, and worked with the Sierra Club as their photographer to further that kind of political mission of preserving land. And so he made a lot of his photographs in Yosemite. So what I'd like to do, he's, very well renowned, and he won the Presidential Medal of Freedom at the end of his life, along with many other accolades and awards throughout his life. He really believed in the potential for humankind to live in harmony with nature. Now, that's clearly not the world we live in today, but that's the cause that he put his artistic practice to and made a career out of it. So what I'd like you to do for our written assignment, and you go into the module and you'll see what that is in the prompt, but I'd like you to now, let's look at each of these photographs and pick one to describe formally and tell me if it's effective or not in that kind of larger idea or theme of reverence for nature. How formally does that support that idea? Okay, so let's go through these. Pick one of them and write about it. This is Alfred Steiglitz in his gallery. You can choose to write about this one, but I think don't write about this one. Write about one of the photographs of nature. You can write about this as a series or pick one. And here he is. Don't write about this one, but here's Ansel Adams at the end of his life in his darkroom. Happy man. Fulfilled. Okay, that's it for this week. And I look forward to reading your written assignments. And if you have any questions, again, please email me.